Finally, I get to do a video about Black Clover. I wanted to do it for a long time. I came close when I did ask you guys to vote in a poll for which story you want me to make a video about, but Vinland Saga did win that poll. I guess there are benefits to this quarantine, and I have more free time. The bad thing about it is that I am running out of animes to watch. I am about to finish watching Chaika the Coffin Princess and The Return of the Kings. So if you have any suggestions about what should I watch next, let me know in the comments. Anyway, in this video I'm going to talk about the story in general, so if you haven't caught up with the anime, know that there will be spoilers. But if you have not heard anything about Black Clover, or you did but don't plan to watch it, then I suggest watching this video. Maybe you will change your mind and realize that this story is your cup of tea. Oh, and one more thing. Those of you who read the manga, don't post spoilers. If you do, I will ban you. The story starts with two babies being brought into a church, and at 1 minute and 30 seconds, the story jumps 15 years into the future. Well, things did escalate quickly. That made me laugh when I saw it, but that was an indicator of how fast the pace of the story will be. I remember seeing this scene when the Queen of the Witches says that I thought this fate would come to pass much later. And I was like, me too. At that point in the story, 4 major storylines did converge, and this was around episode 60. I was pleasantly surprised. I know how these stories are written, and I did expect to see things like that much later on. Because you don't want to use your storylines so early on, or use them more than one at a time, because then you will be left with nothing. And the story cannot continue for years, since the writer has burned a lot of storylines early on. The way he is writing the story, if you did not know, you might think that this is not a long story, and it will end soon. But that's not the case, and that's why I am so excited where this story is going. I said that I know how these stories are written, so I know what the writer is trying to do because the techniques of how these stories are told are well known. But what makes these stories different from one another is how these techniques are incorporated and implemented in the story. You can think of them as tools. The tools are the same for everyone, but people can build or invent various things. Anyway, with that being said, when it comes to Black Clover, some of the things that the writer is doing are new to me. And that doesn't happen a lot. So we are going into new territories, and that's why I'm so excited. One of the things that did surprise me was the first Wizard King appearing in the story. I did not expect that to happen. Usually when the writer wants to use the first legends of the story, he does it towards the end of the story, and not so early on. Seriously, is the story ending soon? To give you some perspective on why this is so impressive, let's look at other stories. Not to compare, because every story is unique, but from the technical point of view. Masashi, the writer of Naruto, did use the first legends towards the end of the story. The Battle of Madara versus the army is legendary. The way how it is done is epic. The cleverness of how it is designed and the efforts that went into making that battle are amazing. But as I said, this was done towards the end of the story. If you look at One Piece, well, after 23 years we got only this panel that says that the Pirate King crew fought the Whitebeard pirates. So the way still goes on about seeing the first legends of the story in action. And now let's get back to Black Clover. The story is not told from the individual's perspective, but from the group's perspective. So the story doesn't move forward by the actions of one character, but by the events that happen. And that's why the writer uses squads to bring the characters together, whether they are magic knights or other important characters. Because the story cannot be affected by only one character. Well, at least not in a way that makes sense. But of course, there are exceptions to this rule. One way how to do it is by coming up with something new, adding a new layer to the story, and that's how it does not contradict the existing structure of the story. But the writers can do it only once or twice. If it does it often, then the structure of the story collapses. Anyway, one of the benefits of having many characters and a rich world is great dialogue. The dialogue between characters in Black Clover is great, whether it is between the main characters or other characters. In these long stories, when it comes to the main characters, at times it can get to be stale, because the writer is using these characters often. But that's not the case in Black Clover, and the solution to this problem is very interesting. I am very impressed by the writer. The members of the Black Bulls are very different and weird in their own way, but at the same time, very human. And that's the key thing here. That's why the dialogue with each other or when they are interacting with other characters, it is not boring or the same things being repeated. Going to the extremes in one direction is never good. Once the balance is lost, then the characters become very limited and boring. There is no room to maneuver with them. That's why you have to do the same things over and over again. Sometimes the hardest problems have the simplest solutions. So the core of the main characters in Black Clover is that they are human. That's the foundation. And then the writer puts layers and different traits on the characters. There is not a moment when one of them is completely lost to the most basic human knowledge, or something is happening and they don't understand what is going on, or they are clueless about the reality that they live in, or the people around them. And because of that, the writer can do anything with them, because there is no limit. He doesn't need to come up with some weird situation in order for one character to do his thing, or to try and find a way to include everyone in the conversation. There is no need for that, because everyone is aware of the reality that they are living in. And that's why the dialogue is fun, because you don't know what the characters will say or do. Anything goes. When it comes to the other characters, since they don't get the same amount of screen time, the writer is very careful about how he uses them. And from what I have seen so far, there isn't a dull moment or an empty scene that serves no purpose, whether to the characters involved or to the story. So the writer does a great job the way how he handles these characters. One of my favorites is the Psycho siblings. They are not called that, but that's what I call them. The writer does an awesome job with these two. Every time they are on screen you pay attention, because something always happens in one way or another. These stories are fiction, so you can do whatever you want, but not without a cost. There is always a cost. In order to achieve something in one aspect of the story, the writer is forced to spend less time on other aspects of the story. For example, there are no fights that last a couple of episodes. But again, I am very impressed with the solution to this problem. The fights are not long, but they are very well thought out, and they do affect the story, which is the most important thing. The worst thing is having a fight for the sake of a fight. And that fight doesn't do anything to the story, just like a filler. There are no consequences. The other thing that is very interesting is that the power levels are insane. A lot of the characters are capable of doing incredible things. The scale of their powers is impressive. Just watch opening 6. There you can see the scale of the powers of just some of the characters, and they are not the strongest in the story. This is one of the things that makes you think maybe this story is not a long story. If so early on in the story we have this scale of powers, I wonder what is going to happen later on. I cannot wait to find out. Great times ahead. At the beginning of the video I made fun of how we got a time skip just 1 minute and 30 seconds in. But I was not kidding when I said that the pace of the story is very fast. Right now in the story a couple of main characters were sent to a new country. And I thought maybe we will get an arc about this new country. So this will be like a side storyline. That is the easiest thing to do when you are writing a long story. But the writer did not do that. He just did establish the country in the story in 2 or 3 episodes and we are out of there. There was not even a single duel or filler scene. Just showing the country geographically how it is, introducing the characters, showing how the society there works, and that's it. So now it seems that we are getting an arc where 3 countries are involved in a war that affects all 3 of them, and the main thing are the creatures from another world. This is great storytelling. I'm really impressed. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.